Greetings and welcome back to another dev update video for my in-development space game for VR and possibly non-VR systems. Now, not an awful lot has happened since last week, but I did want to try and make this a weekly occurrence, these dev update videos, so I'm just going to talk about what I've been working on. If you follow me on Twitter, you might have seen the tweet that I posted yesterday about faces, because if you hadn't noticed already, I am looking a little bit different here. My Creator's Guy visage is looking a little bit different here. It's not that I've discovered some kind of digital version of L'Oreal for men. It's that I have discovered smoothing groups. I've not exactly discovered smoothing groups, but I inadvertently clicked calculate the angle smoothing, the normal smoothing in Unity when importing models after lots and lots of iterating over different facial designs. I still wasn't happy. If you recall in the last video, I inflicted some really quite terrifying visages upon you. I think I should reiterate, I wasn't necessarily implying that the character, certainly the NPC models, were in any way sort of close to final. It was more a case of, am I happy with this kind of like no eyes and no mouth look to characters, and the solution to that, the two solutions to that I was sort of experimenting was with painting eyes and a mouth on, and modeling eyes and a mouth. Now obviously the reaction in general was, oh god, why are you showing us these horrible things? Or something along those lines anyway, which is completely understandable. In fact, it actually cost me 5 subscribers, weirdly. I mean, maybe it's a coincidence, but the day that video came out, subscriber count down by 5. Okay, maybe I can't blame them. I can't blame them. They were probably so horrified they just had to flee in terror. But yes, so the question was eyes and mouth or no eyes and mouth. But actually that then led on to, well, okay, you know, what do I want the NPCs to look like? And the general consensus was, well, based on what you've shown us, no eyes and mouth, please, because it's the least terrifying. Which I agree with. And I think no eyes and mouth can still work. But my concern about no eyes and mouth is that it will be harder to identify with these entities, if you will. Like, I want the player to feel like these are real people, real entities that they can sort of, you know, have some kind of empathic connection with, and actually think of as being alive and not just sort of a mission dispensing machine stuck away in the corner or whatever. So I kind of went back a little bit to the drawing board. I did a lot of messing around with modeling. I watched a lot of videos and things, and this is what I've come up with. So as I say, accidentally, I ended up enabling the smoothing groups. So we've got this now, which I think is a huge improvement. This is possibly... Oh, there we go. Sorry, her eyes are actually supposed to track me, but obviously I was up in the air at that point, so they were sort of rolling back in the back of her head. Again, this shouldn't be considered finalized. This is just where we are now, and I think that works. I think that's good enough. Now, interestingly, if you take the smoothing groups off, and I don't know, I think I've got one over here, that's basically a sort of a similar model, but with the smoothing groups off, and it makes such a huge difference. It really makes an enormous difference to, I think, the way they look. Now, the concern, of course, there is, well, it's breaking the art style. You know, everything else is this low poly, flat shaded art style, but I think it's acceptable if it's limited to living things, and arguably maybe just living people, and possibly there'll still be a bit of a mix, you know, that we can still have potentially like the low poly look on the hair there, and on sort of, you know, clothings and arms and legs and stuff. I mean, I'll be experimenting with different parts of that to see how that all comes together, but I wanted to show it. I thought I'd let you guys have your say again. Do the eyes and mouth now work a little bit better? These are modeled eyes and mouth. I mean, it's still very low poly, actually. The model itself, potentially, especially now it's smooth, could stand to gain a few additional polys to allow for more expression and things. Oh, by the way, I also applied some smoothing to the camera, so it's not quite as jerky and horrible when I pick it up and move it around. See, I do these things because I care. Because I care so much. So that's that. There's one other thing I'll just show you. It's kind of a sneak peek, if you like, or a little preview discussion based on what probably will be in the next dev update video, which is the latest new and improved version of my hover mule here. This is a new and improved model, much fancier than the old one. I got some little sort of thrusters there and stuff. Obviously this is all still work in progress. But more important than the external model is control. Control, control. You must learn control. So if I just like hit the on switch here, powers up these various displays. Now, this was the other thing that I was working on when I was getting frustrated with just, you know, endlessly trying to create decent looking faces, and largely failing for most of the week. I decided to kind of work on this and you know, get some more detail worked out for the way in which you'll actually interface with the in-game vehicles and controls and stuff like that. And as I've sort of spoken about before, I'm a big fan of real physical controls. So we've got like the real wheel here. But also, you know, there'll be things like screens and stuff. And my kind of default position on this was, well, I'm just gonna have screens, right? Because that's the most effective way to present information, isn't it? You put a screen, if you want to show like speed or revs or whatever that, you just display it on a screen in VR, in a virtual screen in your vehicle, and away you go. And I was talking to a friend about this on my Tuesday night nerding excursion. And he said, well, that sounds very much like 20th century thinking to me, which kind of made me think, okay, well, you know, obviously there's nothing stopping me from having a fully three-dimensional like control system for this, and even display. You know, are there ways to display information more effectively by using three-dimensional shapes floating in your, you know, dash space, if you will, than potentially just projecting it onto flat planes? I'm not sure. It certainly sounds like a lot more work and a lot more hassle and potentially a lot more modeling and things like that. Plus, I'm not a UI designer, let alone a three-dimensional holographic UI designer, but it does pose some interesting questions, and it made me start thinking about the fact that virtual reality is probably going to be one of the first environments where we start to explore this kind of holographic interface, which actually will be coming to the real world soon enough. Once we have sort of augmented reality glasses and things like that, you know, we'll start seeing actual holographic displays being a way in which you interact with things in the real world. So it's interesting. It's something that I'm going to continue to ponder on over the coming week. The only thing I've actually managed to do so far is this. I don't even know if I'm showing it. There we go. This little, this controls my altitude that I sort of hover off the ground for my little hover mule. It's holographic. So, yeah. I mean, there's no reason why, obviously, all of these controls couldn't be sort of holographically projected, if you will. I mean, it makes no difference within the game. They'd still be treated as a physical object. But the steering wheel could be holographically generated. The throttle nozzle could be holographically generated. But more interestingly than perhaps the controls is the integration of the information, and how you deliver information about things like, you know, your ship's condition or your vehicle's condition, your power, your routing of different things, all of that kind of good stuff. The kind of things that you always imagine are kind of on those fancy LCARS panels in Star Trek or whatever, although in reality I'm sure, you know, they were just made to look pretty and no one really cared about how it actually worked or functioned. But there you go. A little bit of a preview, really. I'll probably talk more about this in the next dev update video, as I said, and hopefully we'll continue to improve the NPC stuff. But until all of those improvements happen and another dev update video comes along, thanks a lot for watching, everyone. I have been Weird Wizard, and I will see you later.